Hello,
Hello.
everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Alejandra Alvarez, Virtual Latinos Marketing Manager, and we are really happy to talk to you today about how to build an agile business through automation and optimization. So, let me introduce you to Jaime Nacach, Virtual Latinos founder and CEO. He will be hosting this webinar and answering all your questions. So, let's welcome Jaime and let's start this webinar.
All right. Hello, everyone. This is Jaime, currently in Los Angeles, California, although I normally live in San Diego. So I'm super excited about today's topic because it is really one of the things I'm the most passionate about. My team is very much aware of this, and hopefully, I'm going to share some of the information with you. In fact, I just shared this with you with one of our Virtual Latinos clients last night, where I did a little walkthrough through what we're actually doing in terms of different automations for how we can automate a lot of the things within our business to basically optimize our processes and do more with our time, right? So we're going to talk all about it today. This is, of course, a very complex topic. So this is just a 1 hour seminar, or I mean webinar. Obviously, we won't be able to cover everything in too much detail, but of course, those who might be interested, I'm happy to send you more information. The idea here is more to be like an introduction for people who haven't really either heard of automation or have heard of it but haven't really put anything in place and are curious. And this is a great way for you to really get a great idea of exactly what it is that our business does and what you could potentially do. All right, so let's get started. So I'm Jaime. This is me from a few years ago. I started a company called Bluminati, which is a marketing agency in San Diego about 7 years ago. That company still exists. It's still a legal company for this company, Virtual Latinos. And in fact, this company, one big component of our success has been the fact that I've implemented many of the marketing strategies and automations into this business model that helps our business model work. So yes, we have a great team, and that's for sure the most important part of our business, as well as, of course, the assistants that we have. But there's a lot of automations in the background, which we're actually going to share with you today, and I'm going to show you the back end of how many things we actually have in place, and hopefully give you an insight into how it all works. All right. I'm from Mexico City originally. I've been a marketer for about 15 years. I'm still a marketer. Now I guess I'm a recruiter because we have a recruitment based service. So we're definitely now in this new business to help lots of different businesses around North America and Europe and other places to hire assistants. But definitely, one of my biggest passions is actually marketing automation. That's why I'm excited to talk about this today. So jumping into what we're going to actually talk about today. So we're going to talk about these 6 things. First, I'm going to actually introduce to you what it actually means to build an agile business, uh, so that you actually know what that means. It's connected in a way very much to what automation is all about. So we're going to discuss that. We're going to discuss in general what it means and what it means to actually build an agile business. So those two things are connected. Then we're going to talk about how to define your processes, and then once those are defined, how we can optimize them, right? So automation is definitely very much about optimizing things through technology. Then we're actually going to go through talking about specific tasks and examples of exactly how we automate things, which is, of course, the main part of the topic of what we're going to talk today. And then we're going to tell you how the things that you can't automate, you can always reassign and outsource those tasks to human beings, because automation, of course, is usually with a machine. In this case, many different programs that we use that are web based. So we'll talk about how you can use a combination of both technology and outsourcing help, in this case, of course, from virtual assistants. And then we're going to definitely open this up for questions. All right. So let me get started with that. Okay. So building an agile business. So I've always had a challenge because I've always worked at small companies, and it was always my goal to be able to do more with less. I was actually working for my father a while ago, and it was a fairly small office with about 5 people in the actual administrative office. And I wanted to be able to do a lot of things, but we just didn't have the staff to do it. And at that point, we were not really able to afford to hire more people. And so I was always trying to find ways to use technology to get more things done without necessarily actually hiring more people in that case. So I was always finding ways to digitize things, automate things, and basically do less manual work, right? And that's kind of part of the goal of what we're going to talk about today. So that definitely relates to directly about being more efficient, and usually that efficiency reduces overhead in many cases, and that usually leads to increasing profits. So that's definitely an important thing of what we're going to talk about today. Give me a second. I'm going to close the window because there's a little too much noise. All right. So building an agile business is important because we all have the same amount of hours every day. Usually the typical 8 hours a day. If you're a standard business, we definitely work usually more than 8 hours a day because there's a lot that we have going on. But the point is, you still have the same amount of hours every day, and the goal here is how can you do more on that same amount of hours, right? The most obvious ways that people usually get around this problem is by hiring more people to help do things, which is of course what we're doing also with our team and our clients who are hiring, staff members that are virtual assistants. But the other way to do it is actually using technology to do that, which is, maybe obvious, but it's definitely important. Now, specifically talking about an agile business, which is what we're going to talk about here, it's the ability to adapt to changes quickly. Okay, so the terminology of agile is actually most commonly used in software development. So when a company is going to build a software, there's many different methodologies for building software. Building it in an agile way usually means instead of having to plan out everything from top to bottom before you start actually to program things and to build things, it's more about let's get something quick together. Let's try to test how it works. And then as you start to test things and see how you should change things and adapt to it, then you keep making changes and revisions to it. The whole idea of that is instead of taking so long to launch a software, you're able to launch something that's not perfect sooner, and then you're rapidly making changes to it to adapt to whatever the market is requesting or whatever you feel are the necessary changes to actually build it. That's really what Agile is all about, the ability to adapt to changes quickly. Now, why is this important in a business? Most of our clients are small businesses. Small businesses obviously have a challenge to grow compared to big corporations that have big budgets and big staff. So if you're a small business, you should definitely always think about, how can I continue to grow my operations? And one of the ways to do that is to continuously be open to doing things differently, adapting new technologies, in this case, optimizing processes. So if you were to do all those types of things, you would be becoming or acting as an agile business, right? So that's something that it was important that you knew that because mm, automation is definitely a part of that process. But funny enough, we actually use a CRM, a customer relationship management system, which is like a database of all our contacts that's actually called Agile CRM. And so there's a lot of things that we connect to the word Agile. That's why we included this in this presentation. Now, the first thing that you should definitely know about before we can actually talk about automating things is actually having a list of your processes, right? Before you can say, hey, how can I automate X or Y, you need to know what X or Y is, right? So the first thing that we definitely suggest that you do, in case you don't already have either a system that's actually saved on a specific program that you follow or actual standard operating procedures, which are also commonly known as SOPs. Once you have the list of all the different things that you and your organization does, then you can actually think about, okay, which parts of these process can I automate? What can I optimize? Without this list, it'll be very hard to think about automation. And I'm going to give you, of course, examples of how we optimize things and how we automate things and processes. Okay, but creating that list is definitely important. So, how do you define these processes? It basically just means, the things that you're doing every day or every week with your team. We specifically now, this year, 2020, we decided to finally start creating operating procedures for this company. We already had them for the marketing agency called Bluminati. And this time now, as we continue to grow our team, so we grew from a team of 4 people last December We are currently 17 people, so we definitely grew as a team. And the more people that we kept adding, we needed to make sure that everybody was kind of on the same page in terms of how we worked and how we do things. So we actually defined a list of all the different things we do in all different departments by simply creating a Google Doc that actually just lists all the different things we do organized by categories, like super simple. And then we actually assigned them to different people, and we said, okay, who's in charge, what is this procedure about, you know, are there any procedures that we need to do before this other operating procedure has to happen? And we created a whole bunch of things. I'm not going to go into detail about that because it's not today's topic, but the point is we have a list of all the different tasks that we do. Many of those tasks, of course, include manual work, and that's the reason everyone from our team is actually creating those processes, because those are things that they actually do. Right now, some of these processes, if you haven't automated anything, can usually be either completely automated in one extreme of the cases, or not at all, or usually, of course, a hybrid. So most of the automations that we use are a hybrid model where, yeah, we automate a big part of it when possible, but there's usually always the need at some point of the process for a human, or one of us, to do something about it. It can't be completely automated, otherwise you're not building human relationships. And for sure, you probably know that building business relationships, which are human to human interactions, are the most important. In fact, there's also now a term, instead of B2B for business to business or business to consumer, there's H to H, human to human. Okay. So, anyways, once you define the processes, you're going to obviously find things that are maybe taking longer than you'd want them to take, or there's things that you can think, oh, I wish I didn't have to do this list of repetitive tasks. And things that can be automated are usually things that are repeated, things that you're constantly doing all the time that are very similar. You can, there's these days, so far, there hasn't been one thing we wanted to automate that we couldn't, that at least we knew that could be automated with technology. So far, I found a way. So I'm going to share, some of those things with you here today. Um, there's different ways to divide the actual processes. You can either divide them by different types of tasks, or divide them by internal processes, by depending on how you operate, by different departments or by different types of tasks. That's really kind of up to you. And that's not necessarily that important. The most important is to actually have a list of different processes. Now let's talk about actual, money. Many things around the world are driven around money. And this topic about automation is very much directly related to it. So I'm going to share a quick story. Um, I, worked at a business, like I said, working with my father, where we didn't actually have a very big budget or any real budget for the marketing department, which I was working at. So I was just like, okay, I'm hired. I am the resource. I got to represent the marketing department. We're not going to go hire a separate marketing agency, or going to hire a bunch of other, outside third parties or vendors to help us with things. At the time, of course, I was young, very tech savvy. So I decided that I was the resource the company had. So I wanted to not have additional overhead for the company in terms of hiring and spending more money, because we didn't have it at the time. So I always was trying to basically do as much as I could, in this case with my time, right? So that's definitely one of the things that companies are trying to cost. In this case, let's talk about maybe overhead, right? There's a lot of things in businesses to run a business that you need to run and you need to have as costs, regardless of how much output you have in terms of sales. So many companies, in order to have more profit, they need to reduce overhead. And one of the ways to reduce overhead is, again, optimizing processes internally that can help cut some of that overhead. Okay. Now, there's also a big cost that people don't realize, that's maybe an indirect cost, which is how much money you're losing by not being an agile business and by not automating things, right? So if you were to already be doing many of these potential things with technology, you obviously be doing things a little faster and you'd be more productive. So by not doing them, you're actually losing, whether that's time or money or both. Okay. Of course, as well as your actual time. So that's definitely what inspires usually me to automate everything. I'm like, okay, I usually start everything, of course, doing it manually. And then I realize, okay, I should probably not be spending so much time doing all these manual tasks. So I'm going to share, kind of how we started, and that'll be a good intro into some of the automations. So when I started this company, I was literally doing everything myself. I did definitely hire people from my marketing agency to help me with the content for the website, but I was actually doing the Facebook ads and writing the copy for the Facebook ads. I built the landing page, and then we started attracting assistants to come work for us by applying to our site. And so the first thing I did was actually create an online form using JotForm, which is a platform we use for online forms. And so when I built that form, I actually, had people fill out a lot of different fields. But what happened is, as soon as somebody completed the application, which by the way is really long, I would get an email with all their information, which was very good because obviously I was able to ask all these questions without actually physically having to first get in touch, let's say, with somebody over a phone call. Naturally, that's how most people fill out job applications. But it was a lot of data that I was trying to capture, and that data wasn't living anywhere other than the database of JotForm, which is the online forms system. And then it would come into my email as an email with a bunch of data, right? So I was actually reading all that data there. I was then exporting the email from Gmail. I was converting it into the PDF, and then I was saving that PDF into a physical folder on my computer. I would download the people's CVs, the assistant CVs. We started asking them to also record their voice so I can hear them. So I started downloading their MP3 files. So there was a lot of things that I was manually doing. Basically every day, as more people kept applying, I was downloading all this information into my computer manually. So that was definitely the first thing that I wanted. One of the first things that I wanted to automate, which was a way to have a computer. In this case, we're going to talk about a program called Zapier, to actually take all that information that we were receiving and putting into a dashboard that we were able to actually see very easily, where things would automatically go into Dropbox, and from Dropbox they go into my computer. And I'm actually going to show you how that works, okay? Because I think that'll be super interesting for everybody to see the inside of how a lot of this stuff works. So let me actually talk about a few things, and then I'm actually going to jump into showing you my screen so you can see what I'm talking about. But so let's here first talk about different things that you can automate, and that'll be good because once I start showing my screen, I'm going to keep it there for a while. So things that you can automate include things related to lead generation or collecting leads and attracting customers, which is all usually marketing related. Uh, you can also automate the nurturing of those leads. The most common way that people nurture leads today, at least when doing it digitally, is of course through email marketing, where people opt in, usually giving them something away for free, which is usually called a lead magnet. In most cases, it's a PDF or some report, and then you get people into that list, and then you start sending them more emails, right? That's how you nurture them, and that's how we nurture our leads as well. And then of course the idea is that eventually you want to convert those leads as much as possible in an automatic or semi-automatic way into people that convert into actual paying customers, right? And that's usually the strategy overall for many businesses that work online, including ourselves. So those are a few examples of things that can be automated. Then you can also, of course, automate a lot about how to take care of clients on the back end. So servicing clients, which is customer support, customer service, and then creating a lot of administrative back end tasks. And we have a lot of those that I'm also going to share. In this case, for example, our clients come to us, they're looking for assistance, and we have our whole team working very hard to find the right candidates for them. So there's a lot of processes that we have to do in the background that, of course, our clients don't get to see, except maybe today because we're going to show you some of those things. And all those are important, components for our business model to work. And again, I'm going to just reiterate: we have a lot of different automations. I have around 50 automations set up. Some of those automations are pretty simple. Some of them have multiple steps, which I'm going to show you today. Okay. Uh, and now, why are we doing a lot of the stuff I'm going to show you? And this is something for everybody to be aware of, and I think it's important. That's why we included it in here. If you're already working at a big company, uh, more likely than not, you're probably already using what's called an ERP system, an enterprise level software. That's usually one software that combines lots of different tools for managing a business. For example, an ERP system could be a company like Oracle or SAP that has an all-in-one system that has everything inside it: a marketing related section, things for capturing leads, accounting, financing. They literally have one software that does everything, right? But those systems are usually pretty expensive. Usually, from what I've done the research of, they usually start at about $40,000 to $50,000 a year, which is a very big expense for any small business. So what we do instead, us as a small business, and many of the people that are our clients that already do automation do as well. They basically have multiple systems, right? You have one system for accounting, for example, like we do on QuickBooks. We have a separate system for the email marketing. We have a separate CRM for saving all of our leads and our contacts. And we have lots of different systems that we use. And of course, the obvious problem with all of that is that they're all independent, right? They're all over the place, and they don't technically talk to each other. And that's, of course, a huge waste of time if the systems can't talk to each other. But luckily, there's a company called Zapier that a few years ago decided, how can we make this process for companies to make it easier to transfer data from one system into the other. And now, of course, since the internet's been around and more software is now web based as opposed to a software that would be installed on your computer, the easiest example I usually think of is QuickBooks. QuickBooks, which is an accounting system, when I was using it, was actually installed on my physical computer, and then it had to connect with the other computers through an actual server on a local office. Now we don't need that. Anybody can just go to QuickBooks Online, which is a separate version of QuickBooks that it's all web based. It doesn't have to be installed anywhere because it lives on the cloud. So now most of the systems we use, or I mean, actually all of the systems we use are web-based, which means they're not installed on anybody's computer. They're just installed on the internet, and all of us just access them by logging into the software. So Zapier basically connects over 2,000, I think almost 500, 2,500 systems with each other, which is kind of crazy. So I usually call Zapier my magic wand because it lets me do a lot of amazing things. And in fact, it's the software I'm going to use. I'm going to be showing you here today. Okay. Uh, so the point is, in this case, if you're not a huge company that can afford the ERP systems, you'd be using multiple systems, and through Zapier, you can make them talk to each other. Think about it like that, or move data from one place to the other. So now, there's definitely something important to know. Um, if you can afford an ERP system, which is a big software that's been around for years, then it probably is an all-in-one software that it's amazing and can do everything very well. Okay. But these days, there's a lot of companies that are building what they call all in one software, which are sort of like ERP systems that are trying to offer an all in one solution at a way lower cost. In fact, the one that we're using is called Agile CRM, but the company itself was actually trying to build an all in one tool for sales, marketing, and support. Right. So they had like three different software built into one. The problem with that is that it wasn't great at any of those. It was like really great at the CRM. The name is Agile CRM, but it was like not that good for the part that you're taking care of customers. It was not that great for the marketing component. And so that becomes a problem because then, yeah, okay, you could have a tool that it says that it does a bunch of stuff, but it doesn't really do it really great. Okay. And I can give you other examples of software that we currently own that do the same, such as Agile.com, which is something different. There's another one now called Sweet Dash, and there's plenty. Now, those are definitely meant for small businesses. Naturally, they're not so huge, so they don't have all these features built in, and the companies are pretty new. Now, the reason we don't necessarily use one software that does it all at a much lower price point is because, again, they're not that great at all those different things. So instead, we use what we would call here specialized software. That means we use like the best email marketing tool that we can think of, and then we use the best CRM that we can think of, and then we simply connect them with each other. Why? Because specialized software is usually good because of that fact. It specializes in one specific thing. So we definitely think that approach in general is better. Now let's go into the meat of what we're talking about here in terms of automations. So here we have just a quick example, a few examples of how we automate some things, and we're going to show you right now. In a minute, I'm going to just talk about them here. So the first one here is automizing email automation. So Automizy is an email marketing platform very similar to ActiveCampaign, sort of similar to MailChimp. It's an email marketing platform that allows you to send multiple emails. So that's what we're using for our email nurturing that we were talking about automation. Another example here, it's QuickBooks payroll automation. So you can now, with QuickBooks Online, this is a fairly recent update, you literally can automate your payroll in the sense that not only do you put everybody on payroll on the system, usually QuickBooks would used to ask me, okay, it would send me an email to remind me that it's time to pay people and set up payroll for that month, but I had to do it every month. Now you can actually automate it. You put all the employees, you put how much you pay them, and now you can literally turn on QuickBooks payroll automation, and just every month it'll just pay people, and that's it, which is amazing. This has nothing to do with Zapier, but it's just another thing you can automate. Um, Another thing we automate a lot is moving data between our CRM into the actual marketing software, in this case, Automizy. So our central hub of data is the CRM, but then we need to constantly move data from the CRM into Automizy so that it can start sending email to all of our leads and clients. And so that's another example I'm going to go through today. And finally, here, as a fourth example, there's a lot of information that we get from these online forms. Again, this is JotForm. And then we transfer that information once somebody submits information in multiple places, including the CRM, including into a project management system, including into Google Sheets. So we're able to use information in lots of different places. So let me go and dive right into it so you can actually kind of see exactly what it is I'm talking about. So let me share my screen. And so now you should be able to see my screen. So, okay, over here, we're actually right here on Zapier.com. And Zapier.com is that tool I just told you about. And here we can actually see on the right side, there's a lot of different uh, lines. Each of these lines represents an automation, and each of these automations have multiple things that it automates. Okay, so I'm going to actually show you what I promised, which is actually when people fill out a complete application. Okay, which people? The assistants. When people come to our website and they apply to become virtual assistants, this is what happens as one of the steps. We have actually another automation that's a little longer, but here's just a good example. So we get the input from the form, which basically collects a lot of information from the assistant. In that specific form, I ask for the full name. So first and last name together. In this case, Zapier lets me actually split those two words into first name and last name. So I actually do this here. And then I actually save this information into Agile. Okay, Agile CRM again is our database. So you can see the little icon that looks like an actual pencil is the icon that represents JotForm. So it basically gets the email address that was typed into JotForm and it'll save it under the field called email on our CRM. So this is what's called mapping the fields. You're mapping the information from JotForm so that it goes into the right fields on Agile. And then we put the first name is actually the output of step number 2. So step number 2, split the text from the full name, and I told her, okay, here I want just to give me the first word. So the first word, in this case, it's Edwin. Then the second word, or actually the last word on that, in case there's like 3 names, it asks for the last word, and then that's the last name, right? And then we input, for example, their phone number, what city they're from, what country they're from, and a bunch of other, sort of basic data. So here there's actually not too much. Um, Actually, no, yeah, there is. There's a bunch of fields that we're importing. So that step alone copies all that data from JotForm into there. Then separately, once that gets done, as part of the same automation, we actually copy that assistant's email address into Automizy. That's this little icon that's orange. And then we add them into the actual list called VL, which stands for Virtual Latinos, VAs, which stands for Virtual Assistants, under all contacts. And we actually tag that specific contact with a tag called VL completed full app. Why? Because this is a specific tag that we use that tells us, okay, this specific contact actually completed the application. Why completed it? Because we have a shorter version that's not the completed version. So we really need to know who actually completed the application. In fact, That is a specific goal or conversion that we track. We have a lot of people apply, like a lot, what we call an initial application that usually takes them about 5 minutes. And then we send them instructions for how to complete the complete or full application, which takes a lot longer to complete. So our goal is once they sign up and we have their email address, we want to make sure that they actually spend the necessary time to complete all the steps, which includes taking an English test, uploading their CV, recording an audio, and being able to upload the audio. So there's a lot of steps that we send by email of what they need to do to apply. So our automation in Automizy actually, just as if we were nurturing leads, which would be potential clients, we actually are nurturing the assistants that are looking for obviously being part of our community. We really make sure that they actually complete their application. Just like you probably know, when you're trying to convert leads into clients, obviously the percentage of people that convert into, in this case, what we would call completed application, it's fairly small, and that's just how it works. So um, new lead, client nurturing, client quiz. um, okay, that's not it. Right here, this is an automation we call Virtual Latinos potential VA, right? So I just want you to visually see how we actually automate this stuff. So the moment somebody completes this thing that I'm calling the initial application, which is this 5 minute form on JotForm, they come in here and we actually tag them with this tag that says potential VA. They are not yet approved by us. They applied. You can see we have currently here on this software about 10,000 people. We were using a different software, so we have more in another software, but 10,500 people have come through this automation. And then we basically give them, in this case, 5 days. We wait 5 days to figure out, did they actually apply or not apply. Now, there's a bunch of other things that happened before they got here where I'm talking about that email that I sent to them saying, hey, here's the instructions for how to continue the application. But assuming that they got that and they were reading it, then I'm actually checking if they end up getting another tag. Okay. So this other form, the completed form, which is the much longer one, if they do complete it, we have another zap, another automation that tags them with this new tag says VL completed full app. Okay. So if people did complete their full application, we tag them with this. So if the actual tag exists, which means yes, then we stop the automation, which means we don't send them any more emails. But most people don't complete it within 5 days. So then it checks, hey, does this tag exist? And if it doesn't exist, which is in most cases, then in this case, it waits 5 minutes and then it sends them another email, right? In this case, it's another email to remind them, hey, don't forget to take your English test, and then step 2, step 3, blah, blah, blah. And here's the link again to apply with us to complete the full application, right? And so on and so on. The idea is that we keep doing this until hopefully they apply. We don't do this way too many times, but I think it's like here 5 emails or 4 emails, right? So this is just one example of how we're doing one of these things. In this case, we're nurturing our potential assistants that we're recruiting. Okay, so that's one example. Now let me give you actually an example of how we automate something else with our clients. So now it's think about the exact same idea, but in this case, we're going to be nurturing the clients with the goal that, of course, our leads convert into paying clients. So I'm gonna actually let me pull up, I don't know, one lead from today that I spoke to. Let's say, um, well, actually, I probably shouldn't be sharing these people's information in the screen. So I'm not gonna share it right now in here. I don't want to get into problems, but I'm gonna definitely go into telling you what happened. So we tag people with another tag when initially they come in. That's called VL. Again, it stands for Virtual Latinos, and the word lead. So most of our contacts are tagged with that. And then the moment that they actually convert into a client by signing an actual agreement, we automatically add the other tag that says VL Customer Agency. So uh, when that contact is tagged with that specific tag, we actually add them into a different set of emails where we onboard our new clients. So we say, hey, thank you so much for becoming a client, and here's a bunch of other information. Right now, we automate everything. So, for example, I'm going to actually show you right here. Here's another example. So this little coffee cup right here represents a program called Proposify. Okay, so when our actual clients sign their agreements that we send to them, that they're actual, they're actual legal agreements as we send, it's all web based. People sign it like in DocuSign. It's a web based system. When people sign it, we automatically add a note into Agile, which is our CRM, that actually says, hey, congratulations, this person has now signed the agreement. In this case, here's an example of one of our clients, Jeff. He signed an agreement. So we create a small note. Okay. Once we create this small note, we actually connect Zapier with Gmail. Now, this is very important for you, so pay attention. I just talked about Automizy. Automizy, it's really an email marketing software where you can send lots of different emails and a whole series of emails, but those emails aren't actually sent from me or from our company. It does show up like my email, Jaime at virtuallatinos.com, or somebody else from my team, but the actual email doesn't technically get sent from the email server from my company. In fact, it gets sent out from Automizy. The same as if you're sending an email from MailChimp or from ActiveCampaign, those emails don't really get sent technically from you. It looks like they're coming from you, but they're not really coming from you. But when you're sending things through Gmail or through G Suite, they really are coming from you. And Zapier lets you connect Zapier with Gmail. So in this case, Jennifer is our customer success assistant. So the moment the client signs an agreement, we actually have Jen send an email to our clients. The reality is that Jen doesn't actually manually send the email. It is definitely automated, but our clients don't really know that because we made the emails look very uh, organic so that the client can't really see that we automated it. But most importantly, because we are sending it through Gmail, the actual message that Zapier sent is shown on the sent folder. Okay. So this is really great because Jennifer no longer has to manually send that email every time we have a new client, right? And then there's a separate email that we send. Actually, that was a notification sent to Jennifer to let her know that the client signed. There's a separate email that actually Jen sends to the client. That's step number 4. And then we actually have a separate platform that we use called Infinity, where we track the list of all of our clients. It is different from our CRM. We have a lot more details in there, and it's visually much more pleasing to see this other project management tool called Infinity. So we go in there and we keep track of who signed the agreements, who hasn't signed the agreements. So we basically track it there. So you can see this one automation actually does all those things. Now, we have a similar one called Proposal 1 as opposed to Sign. It's a very similar process. The only difference here is we actually add the tag that I was referring to earlier called Customer Agency. So this tag right here that you see over here, VL Customer Agency, in our systems represents that the client is now a client, or I mean, the contact is now a client of our agency, right? So the trigger here is whenever the proposal is won, which means in this case that the client signed it, automatically when that happens, Zapier will go into Agile CRM and it's gonna, in this case, tag that contact in my CRM with all these tags. Okay, that we won the proposal. They are now a customer. In this case, they're specifically a customer of Virtual Latinos. And then we add this other tag called invoice, and that's going to lead me to my next example. Why? Because once we have most of our leads information on Agile, right? In this case, I'm sharing here what Agile looks like. This is Alejandra, who's our marketing manager, who just introduced me earlier today. So she actually all her information is in here. And here are all these tags that you see here on the left side. So now somewhere down here, I have her address. She's in Argentina. And so I wouldn't want to have to type her address again if she were to be a client to put it into QuickBooks. So I built another uh, automation that whenever I tag any client with the tag invoice, in this case, like I showed you right here, okay, a separate automation, whenever that happens, it copies all the information from the CRM into QuickBooks, which is our actual accounting system. And that's the automation to show you right here. So here, the automation that does that, it's here, that it basically says, hey, whenever a new contact has that tag that says invoice, then the action should be create a new customer on QuickBooks, right? So then I don't have to manually create that customer in QuickBooks. And again, that's a great example of doing that, right? Um, we're kind of running out of time, so let me go back to the presentation just to make sure that I covered most things, and then we're going to open it up in the last 10 to 15 minutes to talk about questions. Definitely the most important, usually, things in here is actually to show you the present. To show you the examples, which is what I was sharing, right? But let me just kind of talk a bit more about this topic of what happens when you cannot automate something. So again, there's tons of things that can be automated, but there's also a ton of things that cannot be automated, which is of course why our team is growing, because we need people to help us with everything we do, and which is why we know that eventually our clients will also come to us and ask for help because they'll need a staff member to be part of their team, because there's definitely things that machines can do, but there's things that machines cannot do, right? So I have kind of the idea and ideology that I'm going to try to automate as much as I can, just because I love technology, I love automation. But then obviously whatever I cannot automate, of course I'm going to, in this case, outsource or hire people to help me with. So that's when the human intervention comes to place. So of course, when we're talking about what can humans do, of course many things that the computer, at least until today, cannot easily do, right? So those could be marketing tasks, creating content, setting up the email marketing campaigns, writing content for social media, a lot of administrative tasks, scheduling calls, talking to people, inbound or outbound, organizing files, and so on, right? Of course, I don't have to explain to you all the different things that us humans can do. So automate as much as possible, and the rest you can give to an assistant or a staff member to do it. And now let me say something that I thought was kind of interesting, because yesterday I was talking to my wife, and they said, Jaime, why are you talking about this topic? Like, why are you going to give everybody all your secrets of how you do all this automation? That's not good for your business. People are not going to hire assistants from you anymore. Like, why? So I'm like, no, of course not. I'm happy to share this information with our clients, and I'm going to tell you why. Let's say that you hire an assistant from us or from anybody, or you have just already somebody that works with you, right? And they work 8 hours a day. Wouldn't you rather have that person use their time in the best way possible? You're probably going to say, of course, right? And I'll tell you that it's the same. If you have automation, that's great. I'm going to guess you're not going to just decrease the hours of the assistant or the staff member, unless, of course, they're very expensive, in which case, of course, I encourage you to hire somebody from our company, right? But the point is, assuming you're not going to cut anybody from your staff, when once you start implementing technology, the idea is that you'll just have your staff doing more important things rather than time repetitive things, right? So automation is great, and I would encourage all of our clients to use it, because once you use that, first of all, our assistants are going to be more useful because they're going to be doing things that automation cannot do, that are more valuable to you. Right? So yes, our assistants are definitely doing many tasks that are repetitive. Some of them, are just all the time very similar. And of course, that's what our assistants are for, to help you with that. But when you are ready to automate, you should definitely automate it, and then you could have your assistant do something else, right? Because your assistants are humans, and humans are great, and they can learn lots of things, right? So definitely wanted to talk about that, so that that as much as I preach about automation, we're never trying here to replace the humans, right? The robots are not coming to take our jobs. They're just going to take the boring jobs, and they're going to let us do the more important jobs that require our brain and creativity. So here I'm going to just quickly talk about the benefits of hiring virtual assistants versus, in this case, if you have people in the US or in-house employees. Our assistants in Latin America have very similar or the same types of skills at a much lower cost, usually 30 to 70% lower, depending on the type of role. They're all working virtually, so naturally there's no office expense. And I'm sure now that COVID is here very much present in their lives, you already know that. So in this case, there's also no labor or employment cost in terms of the actual cost to hire an employee like you would naturally have in the US. That includes, Social Security and Medicare and a bunch of benefits. Our assistants are independent contractors, and they are not legally hired as employees. So that gets rid of those costs. We have a lot of flexibility for how our assistants can work with you, whether it's part time, starting at 10 hours a week, all the way to full time or more. And generally speaking, they have very flexible schedules as well. So that's obviously a great set of benefits for hiring somebody, outside the U.S. In terms of if you happen to know about the main industry of virtual assistants, which is in the Philippines, most the most popular thing when it comes to mind to a lot of people that have heard of virtual assistants are usually assistants from the Philippines, because for whatever reason that's just kind of what has been around for a long time. And we built this company because I'm from Mexico City. I am Latin. My entire team is in Latin America, except a few people here in California. So of course I'm like, why do I have to hire people that are like 8 or 9 hours away from me, working during the night? We're not sharing the exact same culture. We're for sure not sharing the same time zone. So I wanted to create this company to empower Latinos like myself that are not in the U.S., they're in Latin America, and offer them opportunities to work with American companies. So the main benefit for most of our clients is the fact that the time zone is the same, right? We're all living and sleeping sort of at the same time. The culture is definitely much closer between Latin America and the U.S., of course, because of the proximity. The language barrier, at least for our assistants, is much lower because all of our assistants are totally tested for their English skills. Everybody's fully bilingual. About 95% of our actual assistants have college degrees at the minimum. We also have people with masters and PhDs. So the idea is, you're going to get usually a much higher quality assistant than the same comparable type of assistant in the Philippines. There's for sure great people in the Philippines. I'm not trying to bash them at all. Make sure you know that I'm clear about that. We have clients that are working with Filipinos and with Latin people, and they're both happy. But from my experience, because we hired people in the Philippines, it's much easier for somebody in the Philippines to become a virtual assistant as long as they speak English. They don't necessarily have to have a degree. Depending on how you hire them, they may or may not be vetted by a company. But we are all about vetting the assistants, making sure they're the right workforce, and they're all professionals so that they can do a great job with their clients. So what you should know about outsourcing, it's obviously important that you're always making sure that your assistants are getting new skills, that they have the skills that you're looking for, and if they don't, you definitely can test them to see if they can still do what you need them to do, or you can actually invest in training them with the right tools, and or training them yourself, right, which is what a lot of our clients are doing. So the takeaway here is optimize processes as much as possible by trying to figure out a way that you can implement technology into it. In this case, for example, we're talking about the things such as getting rid of manual work by creating automations, which relates, of course, to the word automate directly. And then whatever cannot be automated, you can reallocate and give to a virtual assistant. So the idea is make a business work smarter and grow faster. All right, and that's kind of it. So I'm gonna open this up for questions. And of course, if you want to see another example, I'm happy to give you more examples. We got 10 more minutes. I'm happy to show you around. I hope you see that I'm very passionate about all this geeky stuff. So let me see here the text. um, Sam, my webmaster guru. I meant webmaster. All right, yeah. Well, definitely, Sam. Thanks. Yes, I believe it's Sam, one of our clients, who we've helped with their website through our marketing agency. Monica, thank you for the comment. Yeah, it's a lot of the stuff is pretty complex, but we can definitely be boiled down to simple tasks once you write your different steps. Cheryl, automations make processes way much easier and fast. Yes, that's completely right, and I'm glad that you see that as well. So well, I'm gonna start showing you some other stuff while there's more questions coming in. So let me actually, I'm gonna first pull it up and then I'm gonna share my screen. So give me just 1 second. No, actually, here's a great example. Alejandra, if you can hear me, um, please pull up the website bluminate.com, which is actually our website that we created for sharing all of the information of how we help people with automation through the marketing agency. And there's a little pop up that actually asks people, hey, Do you want to know how much you can grow smarter and faster? Take this little quiz. So Alejandra, I think you can hear me.
Yeah.
If you can, please um, take the test on your computer. We're not showing your screen. I am going to go through the test here, but I want you to also complete it, and then I'm going to show people what happens on the back end in terms of an actual automation live, so people can really see. So for example, here we're really trying to measure how automated or not somebody might already be, or how efficient they would be. So the first question is, how do you manage and save your contacts, so you can find them? So I'm going to pretend to be just a random person, because of course for most of these I'm going to choose the things that is going to tell me that I'm very automated. So let's say that you save your contacts on your email, and that's kind of where they live, and you don't have a CRM system. How do you transfer contacts between apps? Some people usually don't. Some people print them and then retype them. Some people copy paste them, which is the most common thing. Some people export them into a CSV or Excel file, and then they import them into the other app. For now, I'm going to do with the most typical, which is usually copy pasting information. Number three, how does your sales team make sure to follow up with potential clients, which is a very common thing that our clients are looking for, right? How can I have make sure that I follow up with people? And some people have a list, some people have it in their calendar, some people have a CRM. I'm going to go with the third one here as well. They create tasks on their calendar, and then they set up reminders. What do you do to avoid having to type frequent emails? Some people go back to old emails and copy paste them. That's usually pretty common. Other ones save them in Word and copy paste from there. And there's, of course, other options. But the point is, I'm not going to go through all the questions. I don't have too much time. I'm going to just kind of go through them, start answering the questions. The point is to show you how the automation works. At the end, in this specific app, it's actually an app that it's a hybrid between an online form and a survey. Obviously, that was a little survey, but it is actually going to give me my actual result based on my answers, which a typical online form does not. So this is more of like a survey or a quiz software. Naturally, here, of course, we're trying to get people to give us their information. So we're saying, hey, please give me your name and email so you can see the results. But we also give them the choice to skip it. So we're going to skip it for now. And in this case, based on my answers, I got to level 3. I am considered in this, funny level that we called schoolboy, right? So based on the answers, we've determined that you're right on track to, be more optimized, but you definitely got some way to go, right? Now, if I were to, of course, put the email and the name, that information would have been sent to me as the user filling out the form. And of course, as the administrator, I would, our company would get a notification as well, which is what I wanted Alejandra to do. So, Alejandra, did you complete that?
Yeah, it's already done.
Okay, perfect. So Zapier actually works pretty much every 5 minutes. Okay, so every 5 minutes, it checks if there's anything new. And if there is something new, it basically triggers the action. Okay, so now because I don't want to wait 5 minutes because I'm with you guys, I'm going to actually um, manually say, hey, process this immediately. Now the problem is I need to remember where this actual app is. I'm in this automation, but I'm basically going to say, hey, go look if anybody completed that form now. It's right here. Bluminate leads are going to be saved into Agile. So I'm going to actually manually run it, or actually, never mind. In this case, there's something called instant. Some of these apps don't even have to wait 5 minutes. The moment that somebody completes it, it'll automatically save that information. So I'm going to show you what it's supposed to be doing, then I'm going to show you what it actually happened. Um, so here it says whenever there's a new lead, you're going to create the contact or update it in the CRM. Then we're going to add a note, and then we're going to send them an email. Again, in this case, from Gmail. In this case, it's from G Suite. It's my email that I'm sending it from Jaime at Bluminari. Okay. Now I am going to just refresh this page on the CRM, which is what Alejandra used for her email, and we're going to see it right here. So right here, this node was created automatically 3 minutes ago. Interact quiz completed. Interact is the name of the software for the little quiz that you saw in the pop-up. And it says, look, she got result number 3, level 3, doing well, right on track. Okay. Now, if I go check my email, here you're going to see that I basically sent myself an email and also copied Alejandra saying, hey, Alejandra, thank you for completing the quiz. You did great. So I received it, but if I actually go to my sent folder it's also going to be showing up on the sent folder, even though I actually didn't do anything, right? This was automatically created through Zapier, but it'll show up on my sent folder because it technically was sent from G Suite. Okay. So of course, here's Alejandro's information. So I could, just actually reach out to her and say, hey, how can I help you, or blah, 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 whatever that might be. So that's kind of what I wanted to, show you there. A little automation in action live. So the moment that was completed, that note was created into Agile, an email was sent,
Jaime, I'm
and I
gonna
just saved
share
myself a
your
bunch of
link.
time.
So if
And
anyone
like that,
wants to
again, we
read,
have a lot of other examples of how we automate things. Even though, of course, I didn't go through too many more examples, you could see from what I showed on my screen through Zapier, we have a lot of different zaps, which is what Zapier calls their automations. So we got about 5 more minutes left. I know that I've spoken a lot. Anybody else has any questions that they like to ask me? Okay,
reach out to you and talk about automation or virtual assistants or anything about their business, they can contact
sure.
you and schedule a call. So I'll be sharing this on the chat board. So if you want to schedule a call with Jaime, you are more than welcome to.
For sure. And by the way, I do already apologize in advance. I'm already pretty booked the rest of the month. But definitely, if you see that I don't have any availability for the time you'd like during December, for sure, please reach out to me by email and we'll manually find a place on my calendar to chat with you. Otherwise, of course, January is still pretty open. So thank you for attending the webinar. I really appreciate it. I really think that everything that we showed you here is very valuable. I hope you agree as well. And so that's it. I'm going to just say goodbye. I don't think there's going to be any more questions coming in. So feel free to again reach out as needed. We're going to be posting this later on YouTube, and feel free to, of course, send or leave any comments on YouTube as well. We'll definitely be replying to you guys over there. Thank you, Monica, for attending. I appreciate it. So we'll definitely be in touch, and I wish you a great day. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Bye bye.